Hello there, everyone. Patricia here. And today I want to talk about if you get a last minute invitation, who are you calling to come along for the ride, right? And people are like, why are you talking about that? Well, it's got to be linked to my favorite topic of networking and building relationships. And trust me, this all comes together. And you will want to make sure that you have this little trick in your pocket so that you are not nervous about attending something at the last minute you get invitation and not having, or turning it down because you're like, I don't think I can pull that off. But before we get into that conversation, please remember to hit the thumbs up and like and subscribe to this channel as we look to continue to build it and to push it out to others who are interested in conversations around leadership, around self care, around relationship building, and all of those lovely things that we as women deal with on the regular and just happen to have to, keep a real life juggled in the mix of all of that as well. Okay. All right. So here's the thing. I don't know what I was attending, but I was talking to someone about this a few weeks ago. And I think it was when I did a workshop. I think it was when I did a workshop, but how important it is to pull things together and to be prepared for anything, right? Because when you are looking to build your professional relationships, opportunities will come out of nowhere. I can absolutely speak to that, where something I wasn't anticipating that I didn't even know was coming, and I'd get an invitation to it, or someone would say, hey, I have a couple of tickets, can you come? Or you can have them, or I have some seats open at my table, you're welcome to come join us. Don't worry about the tickets or anything like that. And it was like, oh, okay. Now, me, I'm the person that will judge it. Well, in the old days, it's like, absolutely. If I can work through the timeline and whatever, I'm there. Then as I start to age, I'm like, okay, yes, I'm there, but where's it going to be? And what time? I started getting to more of that because I'm just like, do I feel that? What is that going to take? I'm going to have to buy a dress, all of that stuff that goes along with it. And then even to this day where I will say, okay, and then I'm still working through some other things. It's the answer is never straight up no, unless there's a conflict, an unavoidable conflict, and or depending on what the opportunity is, I might cancel whatever it was I was supposed to be going to attend this event. My I won't say hesitations, but limitations or boundaries I might put in place will be more around my energy and capacity today, not so much about, oh, I don't feel like doing that networking opportunity, or, potentially going and finding some new business clients. Like, that is not the mindset that I approach this with. And this is really important because so many people will. The first thing they will go to is not, oh my gosh, okay, this is an opportunity. How can I make it work? The first thing they will go to is like, oh, I don't know those people, or how many people are going to be there, or where is it going to be, or I don't have anybody to go with. I don't know anyone. Wrong thinking. Wrong thinking. Approach it as an opportunity first, an opportunity to be considered seriously, right? And then work through the rest of it. And I say that because the hands down best strategy, because it's not even a trick, but tip or strategy to ensuring that you are willing to take on new opportunities or attend new events or other things that come to you unexpectedly is to find one or two or three people that you can tap into on a moment's notice to attend an event with you. There you go. And someone will say, well, that's obvious. It is not obvious to everyone. You would be surprised when I did this workshop and I talked about having my go-to person who I could call at a moment's notice and say, "Hey, is your black dress clean?" And she knew what that meant. She's like, "Where are we going?" Right? And sometimes you got to have that person that'll ride with you for whatever. And the reason why this is important is sometimes you don't want to go to something, especially if it's a huge event or you've invited, to sit with a table at a table with people you don't know. I can do that, right? I mean, like my job as a lobbyist for 20 something plus years was literally to go talk to strangers about particular issues and to get them to buy into it. So that's not necessarily it, but it's the nature of it becoming more personal. You have to chit chat with people. Everybody doesn't do chit chat. You got to mingle. And especially if that's the whole point of the event, whether it's a gala, a dinner, a reception, a fundraiser, whatever the thing is, the point of it is people are coming together to support or advocate for a particular cause or reason or organization. And you you got to meet people. That's literally the point. So I would say is first of all, after, like I said, switch your thinking about, oh no, I can't because, to, oh wow, an opportunity. What do I need to do to make this happen? And so when you make that flip in your mindset, first of all, that's really important. Then the second thing will be, okay, I have this opportunity. I have two tickets, or, maybe it's something that's free. It's like, I really don't want to go alone. Then the next thing is, who's coming with me for this? Who am I going to ask to go to this event with me? And a lot of people will automatically go to their spouse or their partner. And that may work depending on what the situation is, right? Sometimes an event, a work event or fundraiser. But even down through the years, my husband became less of my, plus one. And it was more of, I would bring my kids along. I'd bring my young son. I remember him attending a, a, a reception with me. And my daughter was definitely a plus one a lot. And the reason why I did that is because I wanted them to learn how to be exposed to these types of things so that it's not foreign to them. And to this day, right now, like they know how to navigate in those types of arenas and places because I started taking them to that when they were like elementary school. My daughter's hers is probably the best story because she couldn't even remember her first official business meeting because she was literally an infant sitting at my feet while I ran a young lawyers board of directors meeting. Like that's how hardcore it used to be. I'm like, she's got to come along with me. I'm in this meeting. I'm on leave. She's coming. So that person can change for different reason, and of course for the whatever the activity is. These days, if my daughter is in town and I have an extra ticket or I buy another one or there's some event that I think, hey, you probably need to show up, there's going to be some people, I will invite her and bring her along because she's now entering the workforce, and having these relationships and networks that she can now establish on her own are very important. And so sometimes the best way to learn is by literally tagging along with someone or bringing someone along. So that's one of those things, right? Yes, your spouse is an obvious choice depending on what the thing is. But let's talk about the less obvious, right? You have children. If you have, and it's a child friendly event, or it's something where be something that they can learn from, a great learning experience. Consider bringing one of your kids along if you have kids, or someone else's child. Been there, done that as well. Call and say, hey, can so and so come to this thing? You're like, what? I'm like, I want to show them and introduce them to some people. Okay, so that's a thing. And then you may like, why would you start there? because that's all about mentoring, and that's about raising up the next generation, which I'm always going to be about, right? I'm not saying that's necessarily your first choice, but it should be a choice, right? And so that's also a great way, because if you have someone and the younger they are, or even if they're not necessarily that young, but in school, it's like, okay, well, we got to go because someone's got to go to school the next day. So there could be a little built-in excuse there. But so those two are, one obvious, one not so obvious. The next ones is a person, a friend, a colleague who is probably a good conversationalist, does not have a problem talking to strangers off the cuff, and may or know how to work a room. Now this is important for if it's a larger event, right? That goes to like big huge galas, large dinners, that type of thing. And so if you have one of those people, you always got to have one of those people in your back pocket, right? My person has shifted over the years. I still got one. Like I know right now, and I actually did it recently, reached out to her and said, hey, I have this event. We have some extra seats. Are you available? She was not. And my husband was going to the event with me anyways, but that's someone I know who would know how to fill a seat, engage in conversation, and it could be beneficial to her personally and professionally as well, because she owns her own business as well, right? So there's that person. Always keep the bubbly, I'm here, I'm good for it, short notice type of person in your pocket. Another type of person might be a fellow, a colleague or business person who is not necessarily the outgoing person, but they are the person who knows how to like, you know, uh, I want to say scout a room, but it's not even that, because that's really the first person, the other person, but more so like can really like identify things. They're the observer. That's the word I want to use. They're the observer who can sit and make observations about things and people. So it's not necessarily that they can engage and fine, but they're not necessarily there for that. Like if you need someone to be eyes and ears about something, and like, hey, I'm going to go to this. Can you come? And I want, I want you to look out for something for me, like just so I can get a second opinion, right? Or whatever, and engage. That's a great person to have as well. And it's actually good if they are, more reserved or quieter, because no one's really thinking, oh, this person is like, checking me out or whatever. And that can work as well. And that can work in, again, in smaller groups, dinners, not necessarily the happy hour and all of that, but where there's a more intimate group, a workshop, something like that, where it's definitely some closer interactions and things a little bit more in depth, perhaps, right? And being able to, so that's always a good person to have as well, a person whose judgment you trust to, analyze a situation, get some scoop and some input for you. But they're not necessarily the person who's bouncing all over the room and, chatting people up, over drinks, right? So that's another type of person to have in the back pocket that may require a little more time, right? You might be like, hey, I have this thing coming up. I would love to have you come along if that's possible. So what is that? That's up to four, that's up to four. And then there's always that person, like, let's say they're a good friend. They're not necessarily a business person or whatever, but they're a good friend that is like, I'm not, I would like to have a good time at this thing, even if I'm still having to quote work a little bit. And maybe it's just someone who you're like, hey, I don't necessarily need you to scout something or work the room for me, but this is an opportunity for us to have a good time and have some fun. And that's another great way, because guess what? You want to talk about building relationships, especially if it's with someone that you don't get to spend as much time with anymore. And this is an easy way to make that happen, to bring it to fruition. So just invite a friend to attend an event with you. Luncheons are great. You know, all of those, there's so many different things. Any of those things that I mentioned, a good friend can bring along as well, but especially something where it's much more social, or there's a cause, you know, that people believe in. I used to do that all the time, where I was sponsoring tables and hosting tables and things like that. And I would make sure to invite someone who maybe I didn't get to spend as much time with. Be like, hey, if you're available, I'd love to have you come, you know, sit with me at this table, at this luncheon, at this dinner, whatever. So there we are. I think that's what, 4 or 5 good options for you to pick up when the next opportunity, networking opportunity shows up and you want to make excuses about why you can't go. I just gave you 5 options for who you can invite to tag along and help it be a little more enjoyable, and hopefully a little more productive if it's a business thing. But because someone can be your another set of eyes and ears for you, and so you could just have a good time. Because a lot of times, what happens if I take someone with me, I am more likely to stay a little bit longer, engage a little bit, because they're engaging with other people as well, and you're getting pulled into conversations with different sets of people, which is another great reason to bring someone along, because you never know if they end up seeing someone that they know there. And so this helps to do what? Build that relationship out and those networks out and expand them, um, just by being a little more social. Okay, those are some thoughts there. I'd love to hear your comments about that. Who is it that you like to call in and bring along with you when you get that last minute call of, hey, I got these tickets, you want to come? And the thing I did not say is, when someone calls you, and so let's say if you're that person, please take them up on it sometimes, because I will say, if you turn down invitations one time too many, I might move on to someone else. I'm like, oh, they don't really feel like they want to go. And you don't want to be the person that gets turned down. Like, you want the calls. You want the calls to be sent to you, like, hey, I have some tickets. You want to come? All right. So think about that both ways and what that looks like. And I'd love to hear your comments and thoughts on what that looks like for you. And so have a great day. I look forward to talk with you again tomorrow. All right. Take care. Bye.